Okay, I see that we're back.
We
So
are.
welcome
Thank you.
back. We will now consider item 7.3.2, report FS 03-21 regarding the automatic aid with the St. Catharines Fire Service. Do members of committee have any questions for the chief? Okay, I see none. I have a motion moved by Councillor McPherson. The council receive and file for information report FS 03-21 regarding automatic aid with St. Catharines Fire Service, and the council enact and pass a bylaw to authorize the execution of a fire service automatic aid agreement with the city of St. Catharines for the purpose of providing automatic aid on the Queen Elizabeth Highway. I will now ask our deputy clerk to call out the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bernay,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Miklick,
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
and Deputy Mayor Timmers.
Yes.
Thank you. That carries, Chair.
Excellent. Thank you, Devan. We will now consider item 7.3.3, report CS 07-21 regarding park pathway lighting guidelines. Our Associate Director of Community Service, Sarah Ain, is going to speak to this report.
Council's request, this report presents proposed guidelines and provides a consistent method for responding to requests for park pathway lighting in both our existing parks and open spaces. Council approved active transportation strategy identifies needs in the areas of accessibility, connectivity, and safety for residents, and recommends that the town should prioritize the implementation of improvements to our AT network within both walking and cycling zones. Additionally, the Parks, Rec, and Culture Master Plan recommends that the town maintain a commitment to universal accessibility and safety through compliance with the Accessibility for Ontarians with a Disabilities Act. Last week, I had the pleasure of attending the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting to discuss universal design principles in our park system, including how
Sarah, can you just hold on for a second? Is anyone else having trouble hearing Sarah? Yeah, we're getting like every fourth word and then you kind of trail away and I don't know. Okay, so it's not just me. Okay.
now.
Very faintly.
Oh.
You can use your park voice.
I am.
Oh, there you go. That's there.
I don't know. Can you hear me? Is it every word or only?
Perfect. Yeah, you were trailing off.
Okay, I'll try
You're good.
again.
Okay.
Should I start over? I don't know what you caught and what you didn't catch.
I think it's best maybe to recap, Sarah, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just let me know if you can't hear me. Okay, so I'm going to start over again. Thank you for letting me know you couldn't hear me. I apologize. So this report presents proposed guidelines and provides a consistent method for responding to requests for park pathway lighting in our existing parks and open spaces. The council approved active transportation strategy identifies needs in the area of accessibility, connectivity, and safety for residents, and recommends that the town should prioritize the implementation of improvements to the AT network within existing walking and cycling zones. Additionally, the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Master Plan recommends that the town maintain a commitment to universal accessibility and safety through compliance with the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. Last week, I attended the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting to discuss universal design principles in our park system, including how we can ensure inclusive and equitable access for all. And these guidelines greatly assist in moving that agenda forward. Our Active Transportation Citizen Advisory Committee has reviewed and endorsed the use of this guideline and requested that staff investigate green technology for consideration. Staff are currently reviewing options to determine what is available in the current market that is suitable for respective sites and aligns with our allocated budget. I'm joined this evening with Dave, our Manager of Public and Open Spaces, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding the guideline.
And thank you very much, Sarah. Do any members of committee have any questions for either Sarah or Dave this evening? Councillor Mikulak, you are first.
Thank you very much. Chair Patrieva, through you to Ms. Ain. Just curious, has there been any consideration? Is there such a thing? Have we looked at the possibility of rechargeable or solar lighting for this sort of application?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the councillor, we have investigated some solar options, yes. I don't know if you would like any specifics, but if you do want those, Mr. Warden will be able to provide those to you.
I'm just, thank you very much. I'm just trying to, be in a green community, looking for ways to, after declaring a climate crisis, or, if there's any thoughts, or if there's any technology like that is available, and what the costs would be. I feel as though there'd be fewer bulbs to change. I feel like there'd be less maintenance. I'm not sure what the costs are, but I'm just curious if they've been looked at. I didn't see anything like that in the report. So that's all.
Through you, Councillor Mikulak, that was raised at our Active Transportation Committee about that in Huntsville, where our cottages, there's path lighting there, and it's LED, or it's solar panels which power LED lights. So that was captured in the report as a recommendation from the Active Transportation Committee, and Ms. Ain did touch on that. So that's one of the things we were looking for. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Councillor Renchema. Oh, actually, Dave Warden. Sorry, Dave. We'll go to you first before we go to Councillor Renchema. Sorry. You're two boxes there, so it's like I'm seeing double.
But I just thank you through the chair. We have looked at that. You touched on it. So we're looking at things like Clear Blue Technologies, which use solar and battery packs to hold the charge. So we're looking at those options.
Terrific. Councillor Renchema.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question is, I know there's some areas in town where there's pathways, but they're not connected to parks. They're just leading sort of from one street to another. One would be one that goes from St. Vladimir and Ivy Gardens, etc., and Juniper Court, that pathway there. Does this policy apply in that situation, or are we just talking about parks? Because I have had a number of people over the years ask for us to put lighting in some of those walkways.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, this guideline, the proposed guideline, is specifically for town pathways. So if that is the town pathway, we would be happy to look at it and do an assessment on it. So we can reach out and get further details from you regarding the specific location that you're referring to.
Okay, thank you. And I do have another question, Mr. Chair. So as part of the budget process, we talked about putting lighting into Hillary Bald Park, and I believe that we said we wanted to establish standards first before we went through with that. I think that was part of what we decided. Is this what we need to move forward?
Who's going to take that one? Dave or Sarah or both?
Through you, Chair. Yes, this guideline, this report is a result of the ask from council during the budget deliberations, specifically regarding the Hillary Bald request. So this is the first step in us being able to move forward, is the approval of guidelines.
Okay, so at question of clarification, what is the next step?
To the councillor, staff have already started to investigate lighting options in preparation for this report and for the capital budget ask that was made last year for Hillary Bald. So if this is approved this evening, then we will be able to move forward with implementing at Hillary Bald and any other forthcoming requests, such as potentially the pathway that you just noted this evening.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Renshima. So this might be an item that we circulate in our ward councillor newsletters and then bring this forward at budget time or before that, hopefully, so it gets built into the budget. So thank you, Councillor Renshima. Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. Again, this is very exciting. I know we have talked about this at great length at the AT committee, and I know that the AT committee has been very, very strongly endorsing this for some time now. But I also think just, again, with what we saw with COVID over the last 16 months or so, we're seeing that huge increase in physical activity and just that need for people to get out and enjoy the parks that our staff have done a great job at creating. So the question that I have through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, now that once this, I'm assuming this will be approved, and once this is approved, what do you foresee the timeline will be to start getting some of those paths that have been identified or will be identified? And I'm thinking like, again, Conkle Creek Path, Bartlett Trail, some of those ones that are some of those key pathway connectors to some of our parks. What do you think the time frame will be to get those up to standard based on these guidelines? I know it'll be based on capital requests, budget approval. Are you looking at a kind of a 5-year plan? Is it longer, shorter than that? Any thoughts? Are we through you to Ms. Ain?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the councillor, thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, this year we'll be working within the confines of the budget that was, approved last year for 2021. So it's nominal and it's geared towards Hillary Bald. But if there are other parks or pathways that are brought forward this year, we'll do our best to make sure that they're all looked at. But certainly it'll be an ongoing review. It'll be part of our accessibility review as well. And we also have to be mindful of the neighborhoods where these pathways exist. Many of them are in residential neighborhoods. A lot of them are, so we want to be very mindful of that there are people living in those areas and that we're not causing any light pollution into their homes. So it'll be something that's very much ongoing. I wouldn't want to put a timeline on it, 5 years or something like that at this point in time. We really want to see how we get through this year with the Hillary Bald lighting as our priority.
Okay, thank you very much. I look forward to the next few years as this all comes to fruition. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Russell. Vice Chair Reimer.
Thank you, Chair Pachariva. Thank you very much, Sarah and David, for this report. One question, just out of curiosity. On page 3, we talk under the new request for installations. We have a reference to a crime prevention through environmental design audit. Who does that? What does it look like? I'm assuming hopefully we never have to do it, but I just wanted a little more background through you, Chair Pachariva, with either Sarah or David.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the councillor, I'll start, and then I'm sure Dave will have some comments as well. So a crime prevention through environmental design sounds a lot scarier than it is. And it's a positive process, and a couple of the councillors on the meeting tonight have been part of that. So it really aims to assess the environment, whether it be a park or another public space, to determine areas of potential conflict, whether that be in the built environment or places that could pose a threat to people who are using it. So we did have a third-party auditor come in to review Hillary Bald last year, and that was really one of the recommendations that was in the report for that specific park. There were other things as well, for example, trimming back some hedges and some shrubbery that was there so that sight lines could be maintained within the park. So it's really about making sure that the space is welcoming and safe for people to use. Dave, if you have any comments, please feel free to jump in.
Hi, through the chair, just like that too. So crime prevention through environmental design is usually through police departments. So we brought, like Sarah said, an external auditor in from who used to be with Peel Police, and like they say, they look at the environment to see how they can reduce it first. Because sometimes there's a lot of positives to lighting, but there's some negatives too. So sometimes there's some options other than lighting that we can resolve issues. And like Sarah mentioned, we did do crime prevention through environmental design at Hillary Ballpark, and Councillors Russell and Regina were there.
Thank you, Chair Patrick. One follow-up. So it's all site specific then too. It's not like a plan for all of Lincoln. It's pretty well each park or each trail individually. Is that safe to say?
Through the chair, that's correct. And
Okay.
even with our pathway guidelines, they're site specific, right? Because not two pathways are the same, right? So
Yep. That's pretty deep, David. I like that. No two pathways are the same. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Chair Patrick.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reimer. Deputy Mayor Timmers, you are up.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair Patriva. Through to Sarah, report. Very happy to see this come forward. I know when we first discussed it, there's a lot to it. There's a lot that we have to look at in putting lights on pathways. And just curious, I see you have the neighborhood integration piece there with light trespass. So these lights, would they be on timers or solar powered? I'm just curious what are we looking at? Are they on all night? Are they on between specific times? Perhaps that's in the report, I'm not sure, but.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Timmers. That's a great question. Certainly our parks are in our parks bylaw active during the day only at this point in time, but we would like to have these be on timers if possible. That is the intention. So it really will depend on the type of technology that we end up going with, but that will be one important element that we look to include, and that was in the capital request as well. That we want these lights to be on timers.
All right, thank you. That makes sense. Thank you very much, Sarah. Great report. Happy to see this. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Timmers. I see no further discussion. I have a motion moved by Councillor Michalak that Council receive for information report CS 07-21 regarding park pathway lighting guidelines and approve for use the park pathway lighting guidelines attached as Appendix A and direct staff to apply the principles contained within as requests for lighting arise. I will now ask our Deputy Clerk to call out the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bernay,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Michalak,
Yes.
Councillor Patriva,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Regina,
Yep. Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
and Deputy Mayor Timmers.
Yes.
Thank you. That carries, Chair.
Thank you, Devan. We will now consider item 7.3.4, report PW-19-21 regarding single-use plastics reduction strategy. The Manager of Environment and Climate Change Coordinator will provide a brief presentation. Jillian and Shannon, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Devon, do you have my slides?
I am just going to share my screen here.
Thank you.
You can see that?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair. So this presentation is to provide an overview of the proposed approach for the town to take in order to develop a single-use plastics reduction strategy. Next slide, please. In October of 2020, Environment and Climate Change Canada released a proposed integrated management approach to plastic products, which includes banning or restricting certain harmful single-use plastics. Public comments were solicited, and while the finalized plan has yet to be released, it can be expected that municipalities will have to play a role in the management of single-use plastics. Following publishing of this report and presentation, the province of Ontario released an update to their strategy to reduce single-use plastic items. So their plan is to increase the responsibilities of plastic producers while making it easier for municipal and regional waste management. We will be in discussion with the region about the impact of this and the timelines of the province's phased implementation plan, which is scheduled to be implemented in Lincoln in January of 2024. Next slide, please. Addressing single-use plastics will require action at both the corporate and then municipal-wide scopes. Actions within the corporate scope may possibly include staff and public education campaigns, providing residents with reusable alternatives to single-use plastic items, and eliminating the sales of plastic beverage bottles, at town-owned facilities, municipal buildings, recreational facilities, and events. However, prior to corporate actions or strategies being identified, comprehensive consultation should be completed. This comprehensive consultation with departments, user groups, and contracted vendors is important to ensure that corporate initiatives across municipally owned facilities, town services, and procurement policies are successful. For example, if the town was to develop a strategy to reduce or eliminate the use of plastic water bottles at town facilities, this would require engagement with staff from facilities, public works, event management, human resources, and purchasing in order to consider the availability and accessibility of water to staff and the public, exceptions for public health, such as COVID and disabilities, the provision of alternative items, such as paper cups at facilities and events, the financial and contractual commitments between the town and external vendors, planned rollout schedules, and of course, ongoing monitoring and enforcement. Next slide, please. Similarly, municipal or community-wide initiatives that address single-use plastics through tools like bylaws, programming, and waste management regulations also require consultation and communication in order to be successful. The approach the town of Lincoln proposes to adopt is grounded in the work of the City of Vancouver. Vancouver is one of North America's leading examples of developing and implementing single-use plastic initiatives due to their extensive public consultation, their comprehensive strategy, phased implementation rollout, and continuous public communication and education. Ensuring that businesses, residents, tourists, and staff were aware and supportive of the changes was key to successful implementation in Vancouver, as well as bylaw enforcement, meeting performance targets, and ensuring financial sustainability. Next slide, please. So based on that, this is an overview of the town of Lincoln's approach. A steering committee will lead the development of the single-use plastic strategy. Key staff from economic development and communications, community services, and bylaw will comprise the steering committee and lead the planning and implementation of the single-use plastics reduction strategy. Support will be provided by Public Works. Anticipated touch points with the steering committee may include meetings, facilitated workshops, and online surveys. And it's, of course, anticipated that the town's communication staff will be engaged to prepare materials for public engagement and notifications relating to the project. During development of the strategy, the steering committee will follow principles that are based on the Cities of Vancouver's approach. This is to ensure a number of items, such as actions that should be designed to provide a level playing field and not penalize one sector over another. That the business community needs the opportunity to adapt to their unique businesses and facility requirements and challenges. That actions should not result in significant economic burden to businesses in the community. That businesses, institutions, nonprofits, and community groups should be consulted, as there is recognition that all the sectors of the Lincoln community need to be involved in order to create a truly made in Lincoln strategy. We also want to ensure that actions should not create barriers based on unique issues in some areas of society, such as accessibility, economic conditions, or health challenges. That approaches for various items need to align with federal, provincial, and regional infrastructure, such as regulations, market availability, waste collection, and recycling processing systems. And that the town annually reviews progress to report on performance, adjusting for implementation or revising actions if need be. Next slide, please. So this is a bit of a hefty slide that proposes that the process will consist of 3 phases. So phase 1 is the consultation phase, and the purpose of this phase is to ensure that sufficient research and consultation is completed in order to develop a made in Lincoln single-use plastics reduction strategy that reflects Lincoln's needs while also aligning to federal, provincial, and regional guidelines. It is critical that when developing policies, that consultation and engagement with a sample from all impacted groups is completed to ensure success. Regional waste management, for example, will have to be a key stakeholder that we work with during the consultation period, as will the key user groups that rent our facilities. Implementing corporate actions and enforcing bylaws will be ongoing as well. It is recommended that public and stakeholder consultation occur during fall of 2021 to avoid low engagement turnout during the summer months. And this would result in a phase 1 report being brought to council in December of 2021. However, the timeline is dependent on the release of the federal guidelines and communication and collaboration with the region to better understand the provincial guidelines. Phase 2 is the drafting phase, where the steering committee will collaborate to draft the strategy, identify corporate and municipal-wide actions, and develop the phased implementation plan. To allow the town to lead by example, it is anticipated that the implementation plan will identify some corporate quick wins, so actions that are low in cost and resources, and that the town can take immediately upon approval of the single-use plastics reduction strategy. A phase 2 report outlining the draft strategy will be brought to council in spring of 2022 and will include the recommended bylaws, implementation plans, key KPIs, roles and responsibilities, enforcement, and public communication strategies. Lastly, we have the implementation phase. So annual reporting from the steering committee will serve to measure progress on KPIs and provide recommendations to refine and revise the strategy. And similar to the newly released provincial regulations, it is anticipated that federal regulations will also follow a phased implementation approach. And as such, that performance targets and ongoing monitoring is required to ensure alignment. An annual report to council will be developed to support ongoing implementation progress, reviews, and revisions. You will note that the anticipated timelines and milestones are ahead or in line with the province's timing for Lincoln's transition to the new regulations. And this is to allow for sufficient time for consultations with the public, as well as with regional waste management, and to create a Made in Lincoln strategy that, while still being proactive and a leader in addressing single-use plastics in Ontario. Thank you. If there are any questions.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. Councilor McPherson, you are first. I didn't even
Thank
get to
you,
ask if anyone has any questions. You're ready to roll.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Shannon, for that presentation. And I certainly commend the team that is putting the plan together for I guess the robustness of that effort. And I think that when I look at that and when I read it, it is a large endeavor. It is a significant mountain to climb. And when I look back on the notice of motion that was brought back in February 2020, it was pretty exclusive to our municipal sites, and really not needing legislation and not needing a lot of outside things to happen. I commend the team if this is where the team hopes to go and wants to do this over a period of years. I'm all in. But really, what the motion was an effort for the town to start our residents thinking about reducing their plastics. And for example, if we said that we were going to eliminate water bottles from the arenas, so we would look at what does that mean in the interim report? What does that mean that we need to do? And in that we would say, obviously, we need to look at the vending machines, and the vending machines probably need to go. That if there's plastic when those vending machines, we would also need to look at what fountains to fill bottles do we need. So there would be a budget implication for that for sure. But we would control our destiny and take small steps. So this is much bigger than that. And it's really not really what the motion was intended for. This was the motion was intended for our residents to start thinking about reducing their own single-use plastics, so that if they walked into our library or they walked into our arena and they knew through communication, through signs in the arenas that no plastic bottles, let's say, or no straws were allowed in those facilities, they may start thinking about that at home. So I think we're missing it, or we're going down a completely different road here. This is we're not addressing, in my mind, what the original motion put on the table and was supported by council. Through Mr. Chair, if Shannon has comments to that.
Through you, Chair, corporate actions, corporate scoped actions are part of the larger plan, and there are a number of considerations that we would have to take before implementing actions at that scale. User groups are still using our facilities, and so we would need to consult with them. Additionally, in order to identify the most important or the most difficult to address single-use items, we would have to conduct a waste audit on our facilities itself, which due to COVID would not be possible since current user in attendance is not what is regular to our facilities. Additionally, we would have to review our contractual obligations with vendors, as you had mentioned, and of course, keeping in mind that education campaigns and consultation will help with moving forward. One thing that is important to note is that there are two different speeds, I guess, that corporate versus municipal-wide actions can take. And the intent is that after the initial consultation this fall, that any corporate actions that can be implemented sooner rather than later will be identified, and a plan for implementation will be identified by the steering committee as well. And so while we are still working on a municipal-wide approach, we can still take some action at town facilities.
Mr. Chair, if I may address that. So really, I think what the motion back in 2020 was to take our municipal facilities as our primary focus and not our secondary focus. And Shannon, I completely agree with you that all of those things that you mentioned, we need to take into consideration. And that was the request for the interim report, to come back with an interim report, and in the motion, we asked for July of 2020. We know what happened in March of 2020, but I put it back on the table to come back with an interim report, in September, and tell us what needs to happen. And again, it's not taking it all in one bite. It's we're really talking about steps here, and how do we start? And do we start with one facility? And so that's what we're looking to do is to start now, start as soon as we can, take everything into consideration that you mentioned, public input, vendor input, contracts, all of those things, but show us what the plan is, what the steps are, and what the timelines are. And I really think we can do a lot without legislation and without the producers agreeing to cost share this. This is about what can we do as a municipality to start down that road.
Through you, Chair, those are great comments. As mentioned, the steering committee is made up of different departmental representatives that would be able to come together to identify what those actions would be and the impacts to our facilities, and specifically what the goals are for the town in terms of addressing single-use reduction strategies. Additionally, as mentioned, the regional waste management would have to be consulted with any implementation, as if the town, for example, were to provide an alternative item for use, we would have to ensure that either A, it is something that is able to be processed by waste management, for example, or things like that. And because of the regulations that have just been released and that are coming down the pipeline, we want to just make sure that any decisions and recommendations and investments the town makes in terms of single-use strategies is also in line with what regional waste management has planned and will be planning in order to meet those regulations as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll step aside and possibly come back.
Okay, thank you, Councilor McPherson. Councilor Michalak, or actually, before we go to you, Councilor Michalak, I see Ms. Harris has her hand up and the CAO. So let's hit the staff before we move to councilors, because they might have some points of clarification. So Jillian, why don't you go first, and then we'll go to Mr. Kirkopoulos. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, just to provide some additional information from Shannon's approach. I understand and I can appreciate the wanting to move urgently on things. We can definitely take these comments back to the steering committee. As Shannon was alluding to, we were trying to go with a more holistic approach with, again, the two speeds, the actions being within our facilities a bit quicker than rolling out into the town. That being said, understanding that you do want to, that council does want to try and move things forward, we can take it back and meet as a team and try and, again, to identify some quick wins that we can take into account without compromising any, as Shannon has noted, the existing contractual obligations or any concerns. Do some quick consultation with some of our key user groups. And kind of round out those conversations with community services so that we're not having any concerns in that area, and then be able to start rolling out some of our larger corporate initiatives in 2022. And then as the program continues, looking at options across town as that goes. So again, we are taking your comments into consideration, and we will follow up with the steering committee to look at what we can do a little bit faster for the quick wins. And I'll pass on for additional comments to Mike.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, I think Jillian probably summarized a little bit of what I was going to say. Councillor McPherson, I think we can come back and look at something that is very specific to some of our facilities. I like one of the comments you made. Maybe it's not all facilities, but maybe it's some facilities. I know our community services team, understands the importance of moving in this direction, but also understands that there's a lot of work that goes into it in terms of some of the enforcement that needs to come along with it. And how do we enforce that? And do we take an education-based approach or a little bit of a harder approach? So let us come back with something. I think, I'm hearing loud and clear that you want a little bit more than just what we've got here in terms of municipal employees, but also looking at some facilities. Maybe it's libraries, maybe it's something else. I think we can focus on the facilities piece and bring that back. So absolutely hearing you loud and clear.
And thank you, Mike and Jillian, for those comments. But you know what, much like we heard earlier this evening, it's going to be that public consultation that guides us. It's like walking the tightrope, right? You've got a child that shows up at a day camp with their inside runners in a plastic bag and a bottle of Gatorade. Well, if we institute this without any consultation, they're in violation. So do we have to have camp counselors going through the bag and doing an audit? So we got to start somewhere. I appreciate the starting it at the staff level and seeing how that goes, and maybe we can tweak it at some of our facilities, one of our facilities, and work from there. But having been in that on the grocery side, you need your suppliers to catch up to going back to glass bottles and canned bottles and things like that are recyclable. So that's where that overarching look comes to it, right? So it's a give and take. So maybe there's a couple small wins we can get in the interim. So Councillor Michalak.
Thank you, Chair Pachariva. Through you to Ms. Fernandez. You might have touched on it, but like, has COVID complicated this whole process? Because I'm trying to think, if I see a water fountain, can I use that water fountain? If I see a water fill station, am I able to use that water fill station? So how, I'm a guy that has a nice thermos and, I bring it to work, but I forget it. I can be forgetful. And then I'm not able to get a bottle of water. I'm just curious in the meantime, what does a staff employee or what would a user do for water should they not be able to access water?
Through you, Chair. So that is a really good point, and that is part of the considerations one of the considerations that the steering committee will have to take. So COVID has impacted the progress on single-use plastics at all levels, so the federal level, provincial level, as well as at the municipal level in Ontario. Currently, there are only 2 municipalities in Ontario at the time of this publishing this report that had addressed single-use strategies municipally wide, and that is again due to COVID delays as well as due to anticipating the provincial guidelines coming down. When it comes to facility-specific, using your example of water bottles, before implementing any water bottle reductions or elimination strategies, the steering committee would have to consider what would happen if reusable containers and thermoses aren't acceptable. What happens, how accessible and available are fountains in larger municipalities and in larger facilities? What are the implications of COVID when it comes to public health? The City of Vancouver, as mentioned, they had quite a comprehensive strategy that includes very specific exceptions in their bylaws for things like public health and COVID and disabilities and accessibility. And that is all part of what the steering committee would have to flesh out before implementing any action that would have an impact on the users of our facilities. As mentioned, there is the need to conduct a waste audit. And unfortunately, due to COVID, we haven't been able to do that on our facilities because, as mentioned, the usage is not what it normally is. As the province opens up and as restrictions open up, it is anticipated that by the fall, we would be able to get back to regular programming, and thus a waste audit would be more accurate and indicative of the types of plastic items we are seeing in our facilities.
Appreciate that. Just
one second. Sorry, I see Ms. Harrison, our CAO, in there. So let's go to them because maybe they've got some more comment to your initial question. So Jillian, do you want to go first?
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chair, just to answer the question as well right now, just talking with community services during this. So our bottle filling stations are open in town. Right now, our fountains are not. So if anyone was to come into any of our facilities right now and they didn't have, and they did not have a reusable bottle, and we took out all of our vending machines that are available to purchase any drinks, they would not be able to access anything to drink, which is an inequality issue that we would have to consider. So that is one of the impacts of COVID right now. And I know the debate's been going on in a number of other municipalities on this matter, but it is something that does need to be considered as we move forward into the fall and then even early 2022 of what that would look like and how we can ensure that residents are at least able to get a drink if they do need to get anything to drink.
Thank you, Jillian. Mr. Kirkopoulos.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to highlight Councillor Mikulic's question. I thought it was a very good one, and I think you can look at it, both ways. There are those who are going to feel safer and more comfortable with their own cup, their own I was going to call it a utensil, but their own ability to carry water in something. And so most of the water filling stations are touchless. So I think it offers an opportunity. Yet on the other side, there are going to be those that don't want to come into facilities and even remotely get near something they can touch. So I think communications and education will be important, but definitely a good question. I think on both sides, Councillor, it's going to take us explaining what this is. And I think, kind of in that post-pandemic world, which we're coming to the end of, and I think we're all happy about it. I think, ensuring that communication is strong and that things are safe again, and that we're able to, function as normal as possible will be important. So I think, definitely some good points, and I see it really on both sides of the spectrum.
And having said that too, Mike, I mean, we've got a new museum website and logo, and we're going to have a new tourism logo and strategy, and a new library logo. So these could all be opportunities of branding and getting, book bags and water bottles and shoe bags, all as part of programming going forward. Maybe there's a small increase on the fee, and then we can provide that service. And so it we can help facilitate that and expedite that as we see fit. And you know what? And it's a shameless way to get our messaging out. So, Councillor Miklik.
Thank you very much. Just to follow up on that question, with regards to stakeholders and safety, and that is public health one of those stakeholders we're consulting with? I don't know if it was in the report. I didn't see it specifically.
Through you, Chair, so public health would be one of the stakeholders, again, for things like health considerations and accessibility. And it is anticipated in the consultation in phase 1 that the steering committee will be able to identify the entire list of stakeholders that we would need to engage with in order to implement any initiative.
Okay, thank you very much. And if I may, Chairman Pachiriva, one more quick.
Third one, Councillor Miklik, go ahead.
I recently read in the paper about Ontario revamping the blue box and all of this. I've not really gone into specifics. I know it's not happening for a few years, so I never really looked into it too much. How does that impact or play into our view of all of this?
Through you, Chair, that is a great question, and we will be consulting with the region in order to understand what the implications of this new policy is from the province, and that will be something, again, that the steering committee will be looking at in that initial phase.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Miklik. And yeah, it's going to be, the packages are going to pick up the cost of the recycling going forward rather than the municipality. So maybe that again might expedite change. So Councillor McPherson, you're up again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to respond to a couple of the comments made, first of all, I am certainly not expecting us to be going through people's bags looking for bottles. It gets down to our strategy for any bylaw that is that we have. It's education, and we would over time educate our residents to be working with us to reduce plastics. I mean, that's the bottom line. And to Councillor Miklik's question, and thank you, Mike Kirkopoulos, for responding to that. Touchless water bottle fill. It's everywhere. I mean, it's cleaner, it's safer than a bottle coming out of a vending machine that somebody's touched along the line. So the technology is there. This is not an effort to have something, by Christmas. That's not what this is. This is a request to bring back an interim report telling us all of the reasons for all the challenges that are in front of us to convert one of our facilities, if it's just one, on a particular item. And then, okay, we need to review that at the budget time come December. So it's a, what are the steps and what are the timelines? And again, I think that, if we're looking at across the municipality, there is a whole different spectrum of issues that we would face. I can't even imagine, the challenges that we would have with the restaurants, with the grocery stores, with all of those businesses that would have to come on board with us to convert. So this is taking care of our own backyard. This is what this is, and I think we control that. So I'm proposing that we do have an interim report focused on municipal properties only. Come back in September, and in that report we show what we're thinking we can do. What are the steps? What are the timelines? What are the challenges? What do we need to approve at budget? Those types of things, because I know it's not just a slam dunk. It's not going to be easy, but all of these fences that we're putting up, we got to talk through them, and we've got to come up with what makes sense for us to do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so having said that, Councilor McPherson, are you making that motion?
I have a motion prepared.
Okay, well, I think now we'll let Ms. Harris respond, but I think now is as good a time as ever to read that. So, but let Jillian go ahead, please, and then we'll hear Councilor McPherson's motion and vote accordingly.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. I was just going to say we can definitely look at, and I do like the idea of piloting, and I think that gives us a good opportunity to kind of find out, get some of the lessons learned before we did roll it out to a larger corporate standpoint. And again, we can definitely bring it back to the steering committee to discuss and look at, and then as per the direction from council as anticipated from this upcoming vote, we can look at bringing something forward to council to consider as part of a pilot consideration in town as we're moving forward with our overall corporate and municipal wide strategies.
Thank you very much. Okay, Councilor McPherson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's going to sound very familiar. As per the notice of motion brought forward on February 10th, 2020, the council directs staff to investigate and work towards implementing a single-use plastic ban in all town facilities and provide an interim report and outlining the steps and timelines by September 2021.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. So now, Councilor McPherson, you said now that that motion there was all encompassing. I thought you were kind of acquiescing to a pilot on a single site, or no? You want
if that's what the interim report.
Oh, okay. I got you. Okay.
It's a request for an interim report, right?
Okay. That's the main thing. Okay.
And we're investigating, work toward implementing. So we are going to work towards implementing single-use plastic across the town. We're not just going to stop at one facility.
Yep.
That's the overall goal, is that we're going to get to all of our facilities.
Yep. Okay.
Look, I understand we need to start somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Councilor McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, so this is just a motion requesting a report on the feasibility by September of making this all happen. It's not a ban. It's not an outright ban by September.
No, not at all.
Okay, I just want to make sure. That's all.
Okay.
Again, it's to provide an interim report outlining the steps and timelines that we're looking at.
Okay, so Deputy Clerk, did we get that? Are we good to call that question then?
I believe so. I'll just read it out again. That
Okay.
as per the notice of motion brought forward on February 10th, 2020, council directs staff to investigate and work toward implementing a single-use plastic ban in all town facilities and provide an interim report outlining the steps and timelines by September 2021.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just looking for clarification on that amendment. Actually, I'm just going to call the vote.
Yeah, because we've got to deal with the amendment first, and then we go back to the others. So there we go.
Councillor Brunei.
Or
Councillor McPherson.
yes.
Councillor Micklett.
Yes.
Councillor Patriva.
Yes.
Councillor Reimer.
Yes.
Councillor Rajima.
Yes.
Counselor Russell,
Yes.
and Deputy Mayor Timmers.
Yes.
That amendment carries, Chair.
Okay, so thank you,
Or
DeBan.
motion.
Okay, so I see no further discussion on this. So now we have another motion moved by Councilor McPherson. The council receive and file report PW 19-21 single-use plastics reduction strategy. The council approved the ban of single-use plastic water bottles by town staff in all municipal facilities by the end of 2021 and ensure that public access to municipal water for reusable bottles is available in our public buildings. And the council support town staff in working with Niagara Regional Waste Management Services on the development of an integrated management framework to significantly reduce single-use plastics across the region. And the council directs staff to develop communication tools to educate and promote the redirection of waste with a focus on single-use plastics. Councilor McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would be supportive of deleting the item that talks to the eliminating the water bottles by December of 2021 for town employees. And probably, flipping this amendment right in there. Because I think that's going to be included in the steps and the timelines of the interim report.
Okay.
If that is council's pleasure.
Okay, so why don't we call that question, Deputy Clerk, and keep this moving along.
Sure, Ken, thank you. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly just so we are on the same page based off what Councillor McPherson has said. So it would be that we delete this paragraph and then we add in his amendment there. So I will go ahead and call that vote. Councillor Brunet.
Support.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Miklick.
Yes.
Councillor Patriva.
Yes.
Councillor Reimer.
Yes.
Councillor Rajima.
Yes.
Councillor Russell.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Timmers.
Yes.
Thank you. That carries, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, DeVan. We will now consider item 7.3.5. PW 20-21 regarding Glass Avenue Bridge Replacement Project update. Do any members of committee have any questions? There be no further discussion. I have a motion moved by Councillor Michalak that council receive and file for information report PW 20-21 regarding the Glass Avenue Bridge Replacement Project update, and that council approve the town of Lincoln's estimated cost sharing in the amount of $796,596.59 with the city of St. Catharines. I will now ask our deputy clerk to call it the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Brunet.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Miklick.
Yes.
Councillor Patriva.
Yes.
Councillor Reimer.
Yes.
Councillor Rajima.
Yes.
Councillor Russell.
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor Timmers.
Yes.
Thank you. That carries, Chair.
Thank you very much. There be no additional reports to consider for the Community Service and Infrastructure Committee this evening. We've now concluded our agenda. We will now rotate to allow Councillor and Chair Paul McPherson to assume the chair at this time for the general business and finance portion of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we have a very light agenda this evening. There are no registered delegation this evening for GBF. The consent agenda, we are now considering item 8.2, the consent agenda inclusive of item 8.2.1 Lincoln Public Library Board Minutes of April 20th, 2021. Would any member of council like to remove this item from the consent agenda to discuss? Seeing none, there being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councilor Patriva that council receive and file for information the consent agenda inclusive of item 8.2.1 Lincoln Public Library Board Minutes of April 20th, 2021. I will now ask our deputy clerk to call out the vote. Devon, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bernay,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Micklick,
Yes.
Councillor Patriva,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
and Deputy Mayor Timmers.
Yes.
That carries, Chair.
Thank you, Devan. There are no reports for consideration this evening for the General Business and Finance Committee. There are no confidential items. We're now at committee remarks. Do we have any committee remarks? Do we start with Councillor Russell, Deputy Clerk? Okay, Councillor Russell, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very quickly, I just want to send out a big thank you to Director Matt Bruder, to our CAO, Mike Rakopoulos, and staff for taking action, intervening on some of the truck issues that we had in Ward 2, but that also permeated through Ward 1. We had a number of residents vocalize their concerns about the amount of truck traffic over the last couple of weeks, and thankful to the action that staff were able to take to albeit stop what was happening and put a stop order in place. Again, it's very, very noticeable from the residents on the results. So just wanted to say thank you to all who had a hand in that. Again, it made a huge difference. So great job, everybody.
Very well. Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rajima.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to update, provide a little bit of information from the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. As Sarah mentioned earlier on, there are some really positive steps that staff have been taking with the committee. They've taken the time to come to the committee and present twice on the universal design aspects of Rotary Park. And when I say universal design, and Sarah will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's another term for accessibility and inclusivity, particularly around public spaces. And in this particular case, we're talking about a park and recreational area. Staff updated the committee on the details of the design of the park and the aspects that do make it inclusive for all. Staff also updated committee on its commitment to providing professional development opportunities for staff related to play training. And staff shared with the committee that they're looking at ways of sharing information with residents related to inclusivity of the space, including coordinating educational events. I wanted to share this with council and also those watching this meeting, because I want them to be aware that these kinds of things are happening. When people get together and talk about the work that they're doing and share information in real time, lights go off in people's heads and the related work is propelled forward, and we learn who's doing what and why, and it's definitely worth everybody's time. So hats off to Community Services, Sarah and Shannon McKay and Madison for their efforts. And by the way, they also made a commitment to continue to communicate with the committee on an ongoing basis. So thank you very much. And then I just have an update from the chamber. I sent this out before the meeting tonight, that tomorrow night there's a Business After 5 event. That's tomorrow, June 15th from 5 to 6 for a speed networking event hosted by Rockway Vineyards. You register by the end of today, so you can do so after the meeting, I believe. I sent the link out, and you can pick up your wine and chocolate treat from the chamber tomorrow between 9 to 5 at the chamber office in downtown Beamsville. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Patriva.
Thank you, Chair McPherson. And speaking of Rotary Park, would it be possible, because as the work is taking place there, we had there wasn't a sign there depicting the layout of the park. And if I've been asked once, I've been asked 100 times, like, what's going where? Like, could we get that graphic put back up on the construction fence so when residents are going by, they can actually see for themselves what's taking place? I think that would be a tremendous talking point, right? So now that the work's actually taking place, they can visualize to themselves what's happening. So thank you, Chair.
All right, very good. I would just add one item with Canada Day coming a couple of weeks around the corner. I know that the downtown BIA and the town of Lincoln have got some very, very exciting items happening in the downtown Beamsville. So not going to go through the list. I think you're just going to have to go and see them and experience them. So lots of really neat things gonna happen for Canada Day. We know we can't congregate at Charles Daly Park and go through our normal Canada Day celebration. So this is one way that we can reach out to our residents and help them to enjoy Canada's birthday. So keep an eye open for all of what's going to happen over that weekend in the downtown core. Okay, seeing no further comments or remarks, we are at adjournment. There being no further business, I call this meeting adjourned at 9:31 p.m. Good night, all.
Good night, everybody.